Well, what do you think? I mean, let's start with the Dandre Campbell move. It's a 1-year deal. It's kind of a weird addition, I think, just simply because Campbell is a bigger linebacker. He ran great coming out of Minnesota, but he doesn't really play fast. I thought he was a guy the Niners could kind of pick on against Green Bay. He's a smart guy, but he's not the most instinctive linebacker you've ever seen. So it's like I don't know. To me, it's an odd signing. What do you think of Campbell?
You kind of were pinched into having to make a move like this after Eric Kendricks decided to spurn San Francisco and sign with Dallas. And I can see why he did that. I think Dallas was willing to add on an extra year. They probably gave him a little bit more money. He can link up with Mike Zimmer, who he became an all-pro player under when Zimmer was the head coach with the Vikings. And you don't have to deal with the state income tax of California that you do in Texas. And I know that because I live here in Dallas. But with Campbell, the linebacker market was getting a little bit thin. I don't think that San Francisco is willing to go 1 year, $7.5 million for a player like Devin White. I don't think that they were in the market for a player like Jerome Baker. Isaiah Simmons is more of just an edge rusher. I don't think he's been utilized correctly so far throughout his NFL career. Bobby Wagner got 1 year up to $8.5 million. I think the Niners' price point here was like $3, $4, $5 million. They wanted to bring in a serviceable, reliable veteran to be able to replace Eric Kendricks. And I don't think this is an indictment on D. Winters or Jalen Graham, who I liked last year in the preseason. I thought they displayed potential, a lot of speed, solid instincts. They're a little bit thin. Hopefully this offseason going into their sophomore year, they're able to add a little bit of weight. But with Campbell, he's been a pretty solid player in recent memory. Now, things did definitely drop off in 2023. He had an overall Pro Football Focus grade of 65.3, which is right around league average, a run defense grade of 67.7, a pass rush grade of 71.7, and a coverage grade of 61. And keep in mind that he's not Dre Greenlaw, but this is your holdover plan until Greenlaw comes back. And who knows when he comes back, because an Achilles injury is severe and the recovery is very fickle. In 2022, overall grade of 75.6, run defense grade 60.3, a pass rush grade of 71.3, and a coverage grade of 80. And then lastly, the all-pro season that he had in 2021, he was a first-team all-pro. And he had an overall grade of 84.7, a run defense grade of 82, a pass rush grade of 73.8, and a coverage grade of 81.5. He's not really a linebacker who you're going to include in some of these blitz calls. He's more of an off-ball linebacker, but I'm fine with the signing because you're playing alongside Fred Warner. And when you play alongside Fred Warner, he's going to be able to elevate your game. And I know we're probably going to get into it, but I think San Francisco has really shored up that defensive line by completely remaking it. They've gotten a little bit better as far as their defensive tackles and overall just stopping the run, which I think in turn is going to benefit the linebackers at that second level.
According to Sports Info Solutions, Campbell allowed 76.5% of his targets to be completed, 12 yards per target. Greenlaw last year, 63.6% allowed 4.6 yards per target. So he's not as good as Greenlaw. Do you think that Campbell is an upgrade or a downgrade on Kendricks? And what does how do you see Greenlaw fitting into this picture this year? Are they going to release him and sign him to some kind of injury designation? Do they have to release him before giving him that injury designation and expose him to, somebody else taking him away and putting him on the injured reserve? I mean, how do you anticipate Greenlaw staying on the roster, and how do you compare Campbell to Kendricks?
Yeah, I think both are players in a similar mold, right? They're definitely past their prime. They're definitely on the back nine of their respective playing careers, but they are both very accomplished players. Kendricks was an all-pro in 2019, and he has 8 straight years of 100-plus tackles. He did not give up a touchdown in coverage last year, but did give up a completion rate north of 70%. And then you have Campbell, who is right around the same age. These guys are in their early 30s. also on the downslide and the downslip of his career, but he was most recently a first-team All-Pro as early as 2021. So I kind of look at this as a slight upgrade from Kendricks to Campbell, although it's kind of neutral. I know that you said earlier this week, once Kendricks went to Dallas, that you were glad that he left because he's a declining player. There's no doubt that he is. And it was a smart decision for the Chargers to move on from him, to save $6.5 million on the cap. And I'm interested to see what the figures are going to be here for Campbell. Opportunity to ring chase a little bit and be that option until Greenlaw comes back. And with Greenlaw, I know Dr. Kenneth Jong had said following the Super Bowl that after Greenlaw underwent a successful surgery, he likes to consult with his clients and he likes to tell them, you can come back in about 6-7 months. And from the time of the Super Bowl Achilles tear up until the start of the season, that's about 6-7 months. So realistically, he could come back by the start of the regular season, but you just can't go into the season without a contingency plan. Like, you have to have another option, because he could very well be back for the start of the year, but he also could be back in November or December. So you can't afford to just not address this position at all and just move forward with unproven players like D. Winters and Jalen Graham, when modern offenses increasingly are starting to target the middle area of the field, in between the numbers, in between the hashes, with all of the crossers and all of the pre-snap motion and the creativity with running backs, tight ends, and wide receivers. And with Greenlaw, fascinating situation here, because he's the enforcer of this Niners defense. He's the leader of that Niners defense alongside Fred Warner and Nick Bosa. He's very widely respected. I love the way that he plays the game of football. I thought when he went out in the Super Bowl, the entire complexion of the game changed. He was flying around, knocking heads, making plays left and right against Kansas City. And that caused Patrick Mahomes to go to the sideline and said, we have to match their level of physicality and their speed, because right now we're not. I thought Greenlaw was a big part of that. Oren Burks comes in for him. He gets targeted 9 times and gives up 9 catches. And if you let go of a player like Greenlaw, who's so respected coming off a torn Achilles, how does that sit in the locker room? These things matter a little bit. If you like an employee at your workplace, if Krug and I work together and we're tight, we do a good show, and then our bosses decide to let one of us go, I'm probably going to feel some type of way about that. And I think the players could feel that way about Greenlaw. Now, when you look at the overall financials, I understand it's a business. If the Niners cut him pre-June 1, it's only a $2.7 million cap hit, and they save $6.8 million. If they cut him post-June 1, it's less than $1 million in dead money, and the Niners save $8.6 million. Now, what's interesting is that San Francisco restructured the contract for George Kittle to save $10 million, Javon Hargrave to save $6.5 million, and Matt Mayoko tweeted out that the Niners now have the most cap space in the National Football League, north of $30 million, with $18 million to come once the Eric Armstead post-June 1 sets in, and the Niners can use that money July 1st. So San Francisco's sitting really pretty right now in a good spot, with an opportunity to really address some weaknesses and improve that roster.